Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are following along with our ESS revision series, you will know this is our third video picking up right after our discussions on systems and models. Today we are diving into the core concept of sustainability. It's a fundamental part of the course and I'll make sure to break down the key ideas so you are ready for your exams. So let's jump into it. So let's start with what is sustainability. So we all know that sustainability is central to the environmental systems and societies, which integrates economic viability, social equity, and environmental protection. So in this topic, we are going to understand about what are the different pillars of sustainability and why it is important to maintain sustainability, what will happen if we'll not maintain sustainability, and how an unsustainability looks like, what are the practices which makes the system undergo an unsustainability, and what are the economic models which are there which promote sustainability. So let's explore the key concepts. So sustainability, as we know that it is the measure of the extent to which practices allow for the long term viability of the system. It is generally referred to the maintenance of ecological system, that there is no diminishment of conditions for future generations. Okay, so it's about preserving the resources so that the future is not compromised, right? Now here we have these three different pillars. We have an environmental pillar, social pillar, and economic pillar. So this all three pillars are important and they are interdependent on each other. Environmental model just about managing natural resources, which will allow replacement, prioritize ecosystem recovery and regeneration. Social pillar is all about building healthcare, education, equity, and community cohesion to support long-term human well-being. And economic pillar is about meeting human needs over time without depleting the natural capital production. So all these three pillars are important. If we talk about environmental sustainability, it focuses on maintaining natural resources, like how can we prevent pollution, how biodiversity can be protected, or how resource conservation, like how can we conserve simple resources like water, soil, and air, and allow it for a natural regeneration. When we talk about social sustainability, it talks about equity and inclusion. How can we promote fair access to resources, opportunities, and services? If we talk about economic pillar, it talks about how we can efficiently use resources and how can we minimize the waste, what kind of green innovation we can develop, and what kind of sustainable technologies companies can adopt so that it can reduce environmental impact. And the economic pillar also talks about the circular economy, where you promote reuse, recycle, and regeneration of materials without depleting the finite resources. Now, why this model is important? Because integrating all these three pillars, it helps for a long term ecological integrity. Okay, so only one, if you are just trying to maintain only one thing, like if you are just trying to focus only on environmental, it's not like that. You have to keep all these three in check, you have to maintain all these three, and that environment, society, and economy should be interdependent on each other, and it's important to maintain it. So, for sustainability to be effective, these three pillars must work together. So, whatever the policies or whatever the practices you are creating or you are making, that should address environmental, social, and economic needs to avoid compromising any of these pillars. So, all these three pillars are important for a long term sustainability. Then here we have to understand about the environmental justice. Now, what is environmental justice? So this talks about that irrespective of the people caste, irrespective of people race, sex, gender, anything, the every individual has the right to live in an environment which is pollution free. So that is what an environmental justice means. It is, and you can see that there are so many global disparities which are there in the societies, right? There is this one example, or you can talk about the deep horizon oil spill which happened in the Gulf of Mexico, right? And the local communities, the coastal communities were affected so badly because of that. So just it talks about how we can manage, uh, or how what kind of practices can be done so that the marginalized, low income or vulnerable populations are not being affected. Now there is these two terms, that is biocapacity and ecological footprint, which are acting as a, you can say, the something which is, you know, a quantifiable indicators, right? So how can we know whether this society is living in a sustainability or maintaining sustainability or not? So there are certain indicators which, you know, there which are being created by people. So that is about the ecological footprint. So what are ecological footprint? It is an area which is required to supply resources and absorb waste. So if if it is exit, then we call it as that the ecological footprint is higher. Like if you use more fossil fuels, or if your diet is more of meat based diet, or if your resources which you are using are mostly non renewable resources, then that will impact, or that will increase the ecological footprint of a country. But if your country has more of green innovation technology, or something which depends on uh, renewable source of energy, then the ecological footprint of a country lowers. So it is always important that the threshold which is given, that shouldn't be crossed, otherwise that leads to the ecosystem collapse, where there is the rapid decline in the health and functionality, and that will result into human activity exploiting the natural resources in an unsustainable manner, pushing all the ecosystem beyond their limits. Now what causes this decline, or what results, is something which we have discussed. Now there is this planetary boundary model. Now what is this planetary boundary model? So it's this framework which identifies 9 critical earth systems. So it includes 9 different things like climate change, biosphere integrity, ocean acidification. Likewise, there are 6 others. So if you will cross that limit, then that will result into an ecosystem collapse, and that will trigger the catastrophic or irreversible regime shifts. So if you remember, we have talked about positive feedback mechanism in previous subtopics. So that will, it will result into the irreversible change. So it is very important that all these things are always in control, and shouldn't cross the threshold. So these are the different, it's an example of a planetary boundary model, and here you can see that there are these 3 circles which are there. Then there is this inner circle, which is called as the social foundation circle, which is the minimum standards human for human well-being, and no one should fall into the center hole of deprivation. That means that these are the basic needs which everyone should have. And there is this outer circle which is also called as ecological ceiling, and these are the boundaries humanity should not cross these boundaries, otherwise this leads to the overshoot, and this results into the negative feedback. Instead of negative, it leads to the positive feedback mechanism. And then there is this donut, you can say the center one, which is the safe and the justice space. It is a green in color shown here, where humanity can thrive sustainably without deprivation or overshoot. Now, how can we achieve a sustainability? So it is always, you know, it is the always the people promotes circular economy for a sustainable growth. So what is circular economy? Circular economic means it when there is this take, so whatever raw materials you will be taking it, you will create something from that raw materials, and then whatever the waste is generated, that waste you will again reuse it for producing the another products. And this is why you are trying to minimize the waste, and that's how a circular economy looks like. But when it comes to a linear economy, like so far whatever the industries generally has this linear economy, where you have this raw materials, you produce the product, and at the end it produces the waste. You are not using waste, so this will create more and more waste every time a product is produced. So instead of adopting a linear economy, we should try that a circular economy is adopted, because that will eliminate the waste by designing and keeping materials in a continuous loop, and actively regenerates natural systems, which is very essential for a true sustainability. So, in this chapter, there are important terms which you should know, that is biocapacity, ecological footprint. You should know the definition of both. You should be able to differentiate between the both. You should know what our sustainable model looks like. There is this planetary boundary model that you should know. You should be able to elaborate it. You should know what an inner circle, outer circle, or central circle means, and you should know the three pillars of sustainability. So yeah, this is from my side. In next class we will go into the another subtopic. Till then, thank you everyone. Bye.